Welcome everybody. We're going to be covering today how to configure SnapClone with Enterprise Manager 13C in order to clone either single instance databases, pluggable databases, or rack databases. Let's take a moment to review the safe harbor statement. Just a little bit about me. My name is Alfredo Krieg. I'm an Oracle Enterprise Manager Specialist here in the North America Technology Division. I also have a webpage where I try to post a lot of information about Oracle Enterprise Manager, and also I have a Twitter handle where you can ask me questions and follow everything that I post online. Well, let's get started about a SnapClone. For this exercise, we're going to be using this demo environment. Let me show you what databases we have in this environment. Let me click on Target Databases. And as you can see, we have a container database 186. We have a cluster database. We have database 19C. We have finance database, which is running 18C, HR that is running 18.3, and sales that is running 18.3. We're going to be cloning one single instance database, and also we're going to be cloning some PDBs inside sales.oracle.com using SnapClone technology. For that, the first step is to register our ZFS appliance in Enterprise Manager. In order to register the ZFS appliance, we will have to click on Setup, Provisioning and Patching, and Storage Registration. As you can see here, we don't have any ZFS appliance registered yet. The first step will be to click Register. And then, as you can see, we have two options. On Oracle Enterprise Manager 13.5, we have support for either the Zone ZFS storage appliance and Solaris file system. Let's click on Zone ZFS storage appliance. And we will have to type the details of our ZFS storage appliance. There are a lot of teams, there are a lot of companies and organizations that have different teams between Oracle Enterprise Manager administrators, database administrators, and storage administrators. So you will have to talk with your storage team in order to get all these credentials. For that, let me start providing the details of my ZFS storage appliance. I may need some storage credentials. In this case, my OPC account. And I want to save this name credential. It's going to be ZFS OPC. Okay. After I provide my storage details, then I need to also provide the name of an agent that is going to be the one responsible of monitoring and managing the ZFS storage appliance inside Oracle Enterprise Manager. Let me click Add. Here I'm going to click the magnifier glass, and I have 3 hosts. I'm going to select my EMCC host as responsible for the ZFS storage appliance. I need to select a credential, and I'm going to pass my credential, which is going to be my Oracle host credential. Okay. So after that, there's some synchronization schedule. What is the meaning of that? This schedule is how often, what is the frequency that the Oracle management agent that we're selecting over here is going to execute some scripts against our Zone ZFS storage appliance in order to get the number of volumes, the size of those volumes, utilization of the ZFS storage appliance, the number of databases that we're deploying on those volumes, and so on. Okay. For the purposes of this demo, every 3 hours is fine. And I'm going to click Submit. Okay, the storage registration was successful. Now, as you can see, we have the synchronization schedule and when it's going to happen. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to click Synchronize now. And I'm going to submit the synchronization job. When this synchronization job finalizes, that is going to take a couple of minutes, then all the information will be populated here. Let me pause the video and I'll come back when the synchronization job completes. The synchronization job completed. Let me refresh the screen. Okay. Now we have information being populated in our dashboard. I'm going to click Content, and we will find out all the projects that we have inside our ZFS storage appliance. There is this EM demo. Let me click on that, and let me modify the storage ceiling. I want to make sure that it's set to 100 gigabytes here. Let me click OK. And right now I have just one file system created by default over there. After that, it's time to actually create a storage volume in order to host our first test master database out of a single instance database and start creating snap clones out of it. Let me click over here in Create Storage Volumes. Okay. I'm going to click Add. I'm going to select my project, which is EM_demo. We have our 100 gigabytes available. And for this, I'm going to select 50 gigabytes of space. I need to also define a mount point for this specific storage volume. I'm going to select this /U02 app Oracle or data. The next step is to specify the host details. This is going to be the host where we're going to be mounting this specific storage volume that we're creating on ZFS. First of all, need to specify some credentials, and then the storage purpose. In this case, as you can see, we can use CRS voting disk and OCR, Oracle binaries for rack, Oracle binaries for single instance, Oracle data, redo and control files for rack, Oracle data, redo and control files for single instance. I want Oracle data, redo and control files for a single instance. This is going to be the purpose for this specific volume. My platform, I'm running on Linux 64-bit. Then I have my mount options. I'm going to leave the default over here. And also I'm going to leave NFS version 3 as default. Then I'm going to click Add. I'm going to select the host where I'm going to be mounting this specific storage volume. This is going to be my EMCC marketplace host. And then I need to specify my root credentials. Okay. With that, I'm going to click Submit. And there's going to be a storage procedure that we're going to be executing with all the steps necessary to create the storage volume on ZFS and then mount that specific storage volume on our server. I'll pause the video here and I'll come back when that deployment procedure completes. Okay, now, so our deployment procedure completed. Let me refresh the screen. And as you can see, we have the new volume created, our size. And if I go to our terminal session where we have the EMCC server and I issue DF, you can see now we have our ZFS storage plans, the export from NFS, and the mount point that we decided to use. Okay. So now our next step is to actually start creating our test master database. For that, I'll click on Targets, Databases. Okay. And I'm going to click on our finance database. We're going to clone our finance database in order to create the test master database. I'm here in our main page of the finance database. I'll click on Oracle database, cloning, and I'm going to click on Create Test Master. On the left side of the screen, I need to pass some input configuration parameters that we need some credentials, the data time series, and the destination parameters as well. So for the source, I need to pass my sysdba credential. I'm going to select my sys credential, database host credential. Okay, I have the credentials now. For data time series, I want to use now the data that we have currently as of now in the finance database. And for destination, I want to change the name here. I'm just going to use test master. This is going to be the display name for my test master database. For the global database name and the SID, it's okay. They work fine. It's going to be a single instance database, the test master database. Then I need to pass an Oracle home location. This is the Oracle home that is going to be responsible for hosting my Oracle test master database. So from here, I want to expand my path location. I'm going to select this 18C database home one. Okay. You see that there are some links automatically for the Oracle home with the host and the database host credentials. I'm going to click next. And then in configuration, this is where I'm going to pass the file system location. As you can see, I don't have ASM storage management set up for this single instance database. So I'm going to use file system. And my location is going to be the U02 APP Oracle or a data location that where we mounted our CFS storage volume. Okay. For recovery 5 location, I'm going to enable the use of the FRA, the fast recovery area. Okay. And I'm going to pass the same location /U02 APP Oracle or data /fast recovery area. So this is going to be the location for my recovery area. The size is fine. I'm going to enable archiving. And then I need to define which listener is going to be responsible of servicing this Oracle database. The listener that I have on the Oracle home that I'm using on the previous screen on DB home one is the one that is 1525, and that's perfect. That will work. This one will work fine. For credentials though, I need to pass the password. I'm going to use the same passwords for all the administration accounts. Okay. You have the ability to use different passwords if you need to. You have the ability to enable TDE, transparent data encryption if needed. And also you have the flexibility to define the degree of parallelism for this specific clone. Let me click next. Okay, now for initialization parameters, you have the ability to modify the init parameters for the test master as needed. So in terms of memory, you are able to modify the SGA target and the PGA target, modify pool sizes and the window management, the recovery settings, and so on. For now, I'm going to leave these defaults and I'm going to click next. Now for post-processing. This is where we have the ability to link our process with the data masking and subsetting pack. When we're cloning production databases, we don't want to expose production data into the downstream systems, right? So you have the ability, if you enable the data masking and subsetting pack, to mask the data that is coming from production into the test master database. So you ensure that the data that you have on your test master and all the snap clone databases that we're going to be creating from this finance database don't have any production, any sensitive data that you don't want to have on dev, QA, and non-production systems. So let me click on masking definition. I already have a definition set up for that. I'm going to select this finance definition. Okay. And also you have the ability to define any custom scripts. any pre-execution scripts, any post scripts, any SQL scripts, and you have the ability to also define the user that is going to be used inside the Oracle database in order to execute those scripts. Okay, we click next. Okay, now on schedule, you have the ability to define the schedule where this job is going to be executed. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to select immediately because I want to execute that right now. But you can define the schedule that is needed for this job to be executed. You can say, well, I want to clone this production database, but not right now. I want to start like 2 in the morning or 4 in the morning, and just send me status for notifications when this is scheduled, when it's running, and if there are any issues like action required, suspended, succeeded, and any problems from the job. Let me click next. And now it's time to review our all the entries that we pass for the job. So the database is finance. We have our host, the Oracle home location, the backup details. We're going to use a full clone using live data. The destination is our finance test master database, the Oracle home. Then we have the init parameters. We didn't modify anything. In the configuration, we're using file system. The location is our /u02. We're going to be using FRA. We pass the location of the FRA, the size of FRA, the listener, if we need to configure any wallets for TDE. Okay. For post-processing details, we're passing our masking definition for the masking pack. And last but not least, our schedule, which is immediately. Let me click clone. And this will create our deployment procedure that is going to be cloning our production database and creating the test master database. I'll pause the video here and I'll come back when this deployment procedure completes. So now our deployment procedure completed. Let me click targets, databases, and let's see how the test master database looks like. So now we have our test master database up and running. That is a clone from our finance database. Our next step now is to enable a snap clone for our test master database. For that, my next step will be to click on the test master database. And I will have to refresh the configuration of the test master database. For that, I'll click on Oracle Database, navigate down to configuration, click on latest. And I'm going to click here on refresh. This refresh will take a couple of minutes. In the meantime, I'll pause the video and I'll come back when the refresh completes. The refresh operation for our test master completed. And what I want to verify is here on the table spaces. I'm going to click on data files. I just want to verify that all my table spaces are online. Okay, I have all my data files here. And all of them are under my /u02 app Oracle or a data location. Okay, that means that we are hosting our data files under ZFS. After verifying this, now it's time to go back and synchronize our storage. For that, I'm going to click Setup, Provisioning and Patching, Storage Registration. And remember, this is happening automatically every 3 hours. But for the purposes of this demo, I want to synchronize again. I'm going to submit the synchronization job. And again, I'll pause the video while the synchronization job is running, and I'll come back when it completes. The synchronization job just completed. Let me refresh the screen. Okay, nothing is changing here. I'm going to click on databases. This is where we're going to find our test master database. Okay. So after synchronizing that, the job found that we have now a new Oracle database running on a volume that is related to our ZFS storage appliance. And this is our test master database that we just cloned from our finance database. So in order to enable a snap clone, as you can see here on the right side of the screen, it's telling me that a snap clone is supported. Now what we need to do is enable a snap clone for this particular test master database. Let me click on enable a snap clone. Okay, and now it was successfully enabled. After that, we can now start creating snap clones out of this test master database. For that, I'm going to navigate back to databases. I'm going to click on my test master database. All right. And then I'm going to navigate to Oracle database, cloning, and clone management. Here in test master snapshots, I don't have any snapshots created yet. Here, if I click on clones, I don't have any clones created yet. But now we're going to be creating our first snap clone out of this particular test master database. Here under snap clone databases, I'm going to click create. And the same way we provided inputs for the creation of our test master, I'm going to provide inputs now for the creation of the snap clone. I'm going to use this name credential that I have over here. It's my sys credential for the finance test master database. For host, I'm going to define and select my host credential. In data time series, I can either select now or a prior point in time, okay? For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to select now, and we're going to be creating a snapshot right now from this particular test master database. Now, for the destination details, I want to modify the name, and instead of test master, I want to type snap clone. It's going to be my first snap clone from this test master database. For the name of the database, I want to use FIN from finance as C1 for snap clone. And my SID is going to be FIN as C1. It's going to be a single instance database. And I need to specify, again, an Oracle home that is going to be responsible of hosting this snap clone database. Let me make this a little bit bigger. And I'm going to select the same Oracle home that is currently hosting my finance database, my test master, and is going to be responsible of hosting my snap clone database. For a real case scenario, you will have a different servers from production and non-production. So you will have to select different Oracle homes and different hosts for that specific snap clone database. Root credentials, I'm going to specify my root credential as well. I'm going to click OK. And next. In terms of configuration, we'll have to provide some configuration details over here. For the snap clone, we'll have to provide a location, a mount point location where we're going to be mounting this specific volume and the amount of size that we're currently using. So for the mount point prefix, I'm going to use /U03 FIN SC1. And the writable space, you see that currently the volume is 5.5 gigabytes. Okay. I'm going to define the writable space around 6 gigabytes for the snap clone. For the listener that is going to be hosting this specific snap clone database is going to be the same listener that we have on the Oracle home that we defined on the previous screen. Passwords, we need to provide the passwords. Again, I'm going to use the same password for all the administration accounts. And as well, if I want to enable TDE, I can enable TDE over here. Next. Any modifications that I need to make to init parameters, I can do it here. I'm going to leave the defaults and click next. For post-processing, Over here, I can define and use another data masking definition. I don't have to do it anymore because my test master database is already masked. So that's the beauty of masking the test master instead of masking the snap-clone databases. But if for whatever reason you need to define a different masking, use a different masking definition, you can do it here. And the same way we use and the option that we have available for our test master database in order to execute custom scripts, you have the ability to execute any custom scripts here as well. The schedule is going to be immediately. And now review our inputs. We have our source database, which is a test master database. Our destination database, which is going to be snapclone1, FIN-SC1, the Oracle home that we're using for that. We provided the credentials for the database home and the privileged credentials, which is root. Then post-processing details, we don't have any masking definition, nor any pre and post cloning scripts. Clone type is going to be on a snap clone using live data. No modifications to init parameters, and the schedule is immediately. Let me click clone. And of course, there's going to be a deployment procedure. It's going to take some time. I'll pause the video, and when this deployment procedure completes, I'll come back and resume the video. All right, our deployment procedure just completed. Let me go back to target databases. And now we can see that we have our snap clone from our test master. If I click on our test master database and I navigate to Oracle database, cloning, clone management. Under clones, I'm going to be able to see my snap clone database. It's a live data snap clone coming from our test master database. So this completes the use case for snap cloning a single instance database, creating a test master using a ZFS storage appliance. The second use case, and the one that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, is we also want to create a test master and a snap clone from a pluggable database. Okay. So for that, I will have to create a new storage volume. For that, I'm going to click here in Setup, Provisioning and Patching, and go back to my storage registration. Okay. Let me go back to Contents. And from that, I'm going to click Create Storage Volumes. Click Add, select my EM demo. My size is going to be 10 gigs. And my mount point is going to be, in this case, /U04 app Oracle or data. My host credentials, again, Oracle. The storage purpose is going to be the same. The Oracle data, redo, and control files for a single instance. My platform, Linux 64-bit. Same mount options, same NFS version 3. And I'm going to mount that into my EMCC marketplace.com server. I need to also pass my root credential. And I'm going to click Submit. Same way, I'll pause the video while this job is running, and I'll come back when it completes. So our deployment procedure just completed. Close this page and refresh our storage registration dashboard. And as you can see, we have a new volume created that is 10 gigs in size and is the one that we're going to be using for our pluggable database, test master, and snapclone. All right, let me click on Enterprise, Provisioning and Patching, Database Provisioning. We're going to be provisioning our test master pluggable database. On the left side of the screen, we have these related links, and you see that we have provision pluggable databases. I'm going to click here. Now, I need to select the container database. We have several container databases running on this demo environment, and I'm going to select the sales container database. Here on the PDB operations, I'm going to select create new pluggable database and click launch. Now on the creation options, I'm going to select clone an existing pluggable database. This is going to be a full clone. My source pluggable database, I'm going to choose one of my pluggable databases that I have on sales. I'm going to select this P-Sales pluggable database. Okay. I don't need a database link because I'm cloning on the same container. In the credentials, though, I'm going to select my host credential. Okay. Click next. I need to provide a pluggable database name. Let me select this name, psales_tm, in order to identify my test master. And I don't want to define a new PDB administrator username and password. I'm just going to use the one that we already have. I don't want any additional copies, only one. I'm going to click next. Okay, so now for storage. We're going to be using file system. Again, I don't have ASM for this container database. For now, for the location is going to be different. The location is going to be our volume that we created on ZFS that is mounted under /U04 app Oracle Aura data. And we're just passing sales and psales_tm. So we can store all the pluggable database files under there. For temporary working directory /tmp works perfectly. Okay. And I don't have any post creation scripts. Okay. Click next. There's some validation happening behind scenes. Schedule immediately. Next. Okay, so now it's time to review. I have the pluggable database, which is psales_tm. We're going to be creating that in our sales container. The source PDB is our psales under the sales container. We're using our /U04 app Oracle Aura data, and it's a file system storage type. Let's click submit. View execution details. And again, this is going to take 2-3 minutes. I'll pause the video and I'll come back when the pluggable database for our test master scenario completes. Okay, the creation of the test master pluggable database just completed. Let me go back to our database dashboard. Click targets, databases. And let me expand the pluggable databases that we have under our sales container. You see now that we have the psales_tm. Let me click on that. Okay, open running. So now I also need to gather and refresh the configuration details of this pluggable database. For that, I'll click on Oracle Database, Configuration, Latest. You see that it's empty right now. Let me click refresh. And this will take a couple of minutes. So I'll pause the video and I'll come back when this configuration refresh completes. All right, so the configuration refresh just completed. And the same way we did for our test master database, we're going to verify over here under table spaces and data files that all the data files are online and all of them are under /U04 app Oracle Aura data. Okay, so everything looks fine. Now it's time to go back to our storage registration page. Okay, and click synchronize again. As usual, I'll pause the video and I'll come back when the synchronization job completes. The synchronization job completed. Let me go back to databases. I'm going to click here on the databases tab. And as you can see now, our pluggable database psales_tm is showing up as supported for SnapClone. Let me highlight this row and I'm going to enable a SnapClone. Okay, a SnapClone was enabled for our pluggable database that is acting as the test master. So now it's time to go back and provision snap clones out of this specific test master. Let me click on Enterprise, Provisioning and Patching, Database Provisioning. I'm going to click on Provision Pluggable Databases. Select our container database. It's going to be sales container. Create new pluggable databases and click Launch. We're going to select Clone an existing pluggable database, and this time we're going to select SnapClone. Our source pluggable database is going to be our PCLs TM. Select. Okay. And we have to select our host named credential. Click Next. Now we need to pass a name for this SnapClone pluggable database. I'm going to select this psales_snap1. And for this exercise, I don't want to create multiple copies. So only one SnapClone copy. I don't want to modify the PDB admin password either. Let me click Next. There's some validation that is happening behind the scenes. Okay. So now it's time to define the mount point prefix for our pluggable database SnapClone. I'll use this U01 app Oracle or data psales snap1. There's where we're going to be mounting the volume for our SnapClone database. And I'm going to select 4 gigs of writable space. Now we need to select the privileged host credentials. So in this case, my privileged credential is the root credential. Okay. And now it's time to click Next. Okay, it's validating one more time. My schedule is immediately. Let me click Next. And now let's review. I have the container database, which is the sales container. The pluggable database name is going to be psales_snap1. It's going to be on the SnapClone. Under our EMCC host, we have the host credentials, the source pluggable database, which is our test master. For storage, we have our mount point on ZFS. This is going to be our mount point prefix for this volume to be mounted. And we have 4 gigs of writable space. Okay, let's click Submit. And again, this will take around 1 or 2 minutes. And as usual, I'll pause the video and I'll come back when that completes. All right, so the deployment procedure completed. Let me go back to target databases. Expand our sales container, and you will find out that we have our SnapClone database here. If I click on psales TM, I see that it's up and running. I can navigate to the rest of the databases over here. And let me go back to setup, provision and patching, storage registration. And if I synchronize once again, I'll find out that I have also the SnapClone database right here. Okay. If I also show you, once again, the df command, you will see that we have all the mount points for coming from the storage volumes that we created for all those databases. So we have the first storage volume for the test master and the SnapClone of the single instance database. We have the location where we mounted for the SnapClone database over here, single instance. Then the second volume that we created for the pluggable database, along with the one for the SnapClone pluggable database. Thank you. This concludes this exercise and demonstration of a SnapClone using Oracle Enterprise Manager 13.5.